reminded me of you. But I can't see the stars from Second Avenue. The shimmer was just neon, reflected in the rain from the corner deli where memory comes with pain. I'd say it was the moon that made me lose my head, but I never saw the moon in that window by our bed. It was just a street lamp shining in the dark above the empty bench in the empty park.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ryan Maloney, and I work in the programming department at the National Jazz Museum in Harlem. We're excited to have you guys here with us as part of our Crib Collective, our Crib Notes series that we do. Online programming, all kinds of different things that we've been up to over the last couple months during the shutdown. I want to thank you guys for joining us. If you get a chance, this is going to be a really exciting afternoon. So if you click the little share button in Facebook, you can help us spread the word, get more folks in. The numbers are crawling up as we speak, so that's great. We love to have as many people have an opportunity to experience these events as possible. This is a very special series for us for a number of reasons. One is it allows us to partner with a great institution, the Zuckerman Institute at Columbia University, where they do some amazing work in neuroscience and brain research. We're excited to partner with them on this ongoing series. Let's see, on behalf of our executive director, Tracy Hyder-Suffern, and our co-artistic directors, Jonathan Batiste and Christian McBride, we want to welcome you all here today as we continue this series. If you're not familiar with the National Jazz Museum in Harlem, we are located on 129th Street, just off of Lenox Avenue in Harlem, and we are not open to the public currently, but keep posted, and we hope to be able to reopen. It's looking like much later in the year, if not next year, just given all the directives that we're getting. But we'd love to have you up at the museum. In the meantime, we hope that you continue to tune into our live programming, live and pre-recorded online programming that we do here at the museum. Today, I want to get started. We're going to welcome one of the great jazz piano players we have in New York City, and one of the great jazz piano players we have in the world. We're going to get started. We have two guests today. Helen Sung is our piano player, jazz extraordinaire, and then we also have PhD candidate Ashlea Morgan from the Zuckerman Institute. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Hit that share button. Let people know what we're up to here on our Facebook page, and let's everybody say hello to Helen Sung. Hi, Helen.
Hi, Ryan. It's so good to see you, and great to be here again, and on this hot summer day.
I know, right? Yeah, for
So
sure.
I'm going to try and cool myself down with some music. We'll start
Great.
with. Um, I just did a live stream concert yesterday to close out the Mingus Mondays Live series that they've been doing. So I want another shot at one of those tunes, one of the most beautiful tunes Mingus wrote called Sweet Sucker Dance. And
Beautiful.
then I'll continue with one of mine called Perpetual Motion, which is what life feels like these days. So thank you
Great.
again for hosting us. And here we
Sure.
go.
All right.
Okay. sadly, I wish I had my AC on right now. I am from Houston, Texas, and I am missing central air, but it's still awesome to be in Forest Hills, Queens on this hot Tuesday summer day. And I'm excited to talk to you about our topic for today. The past couple of months, we've talked about successfully rhythm and melody, two of the basic elements in music. Today, we're going to talk about harmony. We're calling it Hearing Harmony with Helen Sung and Ashlea Morgan. So, melody and rhythm, we can do that on our own, right? We can clap our hands, we can stomp our feet, we can do body percussion, and with melody, we can sing in the shower, we can hum, we can whistle. But harmony is different. We need somebody else to make harmony in music. We can't do it on our own. And I think that is just a very timely topic for today. And also, I'm excited about the points of connection it has in the work and research of our guest, very special guest today. So I want to welcome her now to introduce you and let her tell you a little bit about herself and her story. We're so happy to have wonderful PhD candidate Ashlea Morgan. Woo!
Hi. Hi. So thank you so much, Helen, both for the introduction and also the amazing playing. We've done this before, I know, and I'm still not over the amazingness of your piano skills. Okay, so thank you so much again. I am a 6th-year PhD candidate in neurobiology and behavior at Columbia. And so I describe myself as a writer and also a neuroscientist. And I wrote a piece actually recently thinking about my title as scientist and when I started to become a scientist. And I think it's something that I've always kind of had. I've always been quite curious. And in particular, I've been really curious about what makes us feel different things and what makes us do the things that we do. And luckily, at an early age, I learned that the brain is the responsible for a lot of this. And not only that, it's not just that the brain is responsible. The brain can be studied. And so fast forward to today, and I'm still curious, and I'm still asking questions, and I'm still studying neuroscience. So I'm excited again to talk to you about that.
Well, just thank you for stopping by, for your time and sharing your expertise. And just to carry on from there a bit, so harmony in music is defined as any combination of 2 or more notes that are sounded simultaneously. So that, or, those are all examples of harmony. And Western music is noted for its emphasis on an elaborate development of harmony. And the first codified example of harmony actually comes from around 10th century in Western Europe. Actually, this practice was very much, had a strong home at the Notre Dame Cathedral, but they would add an extra line, a different line to a line of traditional plain chant. And what plain chant is just unaccompanied church music, that means just voices, that was sung in unison. So let's hear an example of plain song or plain chant. And now let's listen to, when they added the extra line, they call it organum chant. So let's listen to an example when they started adding a harmony part. So as you can hear, when 2 different notes get together, you set up all kinds of fascinating possibilities. these overtones and frequencies start mixing, start clashing, start building upon each other. And, you know, I'm curious, is there kind of an analogy or analogous in the brain, evolution of the brain, something that mirrors, that's driven this drive towards ever greater complexity? You know, from there, we, over the ages, now we have symphonies and symphonies with voices and whole choirs. So I'm curious, what does it look like in the brain?
Yeah, so I would say, you know, our brains have perhaps evolved to listen to these ever more complex types of music. So this, forewarning, is not my particular area of research, but I am a neuroscientist, so you know, I wanted to come prepared, and so I skimmed, haven't yet read, this book called "This Is Your Brain on Music" by a neuroscientist and also a rock star, Daniel Levitin, and he talks about the various brain regions that are involved when you're listening to, reading, playing, dancing to music. So there are brain regions such as the motor cortex, which are involved when you're kind of doing your dance, visual cortex, which is involved when you are reading music or looking at dance moves of other people. Obviously, the auditory cortex involved with listening to sounds or perceiving different tones. Sensory cortex, kind of understanding what's going on around you as far as tactile feedback from your fingers. Amygdala, which is taking note of the emotional reactions to music. And then an area that I study, the prefrontal cortex, which is interested in the creation and expectation and satisfaction of expectations. So like if, when you're playing a song, it's da 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 da, you kind of expect that next note to come. And that's what the prefrontal cortex functions there.
So, man, based on what you're showing us, I think that myth of us using only 10% of our brains is not quite true, is it?
Exactly. Yes. So we are using 100% of our brains, not like the movie, I think it was Lucy, where they said we only use 10%. But yeah, not all at the same time. But definitely we're using 100%.
Well, I did remember in some of the stuff I've been reading and also with the other scientists that I've spoken with at Zuckerman, it's like music is an activity that engages actually a big, I guess, percentage of all these different areas.
Mm-hmm.
Like the visual cortex is engaged too. That's, people see things in their mind. We remember things. Music can be strongly associated with a memory. I mean, and what makes those things happen? Is it like, I know there are electrical impulses in the brain, but I'm sure there's stuff behind the electrical impulses too.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, on the grander scheme, these different brain regions have to communicate information to each other. And so in the terms of my research, I study a chemical called serotonin. And so this is an image that I'm showing you if you were to cut the brain right here and then look into one of the halves. So serotonin is being made in the brainstem, so kind of back here. And then it's being released, and you can I hope you can appreciate it. It's being released in these wires pretty much everywhere in the brain. And, if you remember back to the previous slide, those are brain regions that are involved in a lot of different things, motor cortex and anticipation, like the prefrontal cortex, my brain region of interest. And so, like I said, in terms of my research, serotonin being made here is being released in a brain region called the medial prefrontal cortex here, which is driving our ability to be flexible in our emotional and cognitive behaviors. And so I think if we think about the basic harmony the basic definition of harmony that you talked about, just, two notes being hit at the same time or more than two notes being hit at the same time. Certainly in my research, there are brain regions like the dorsal raphe, which I talked about, which is back here, which is making serotonin. And then there's the prefrontal cortex here that is receiving serotonin that need to kind of work in unison. And there can be, for instance, consonance, which is perhaps the brain regions firing and oscillating together, or it could be dissonance, with brain regions firing kind of out of sync and not quite at the same time.
So out of sync doesn't mean necessarily in opposition, but that
No,
they work
it doesn't.
in tandem.
Yeah, so
Okay.
it's still working in tandem, but just not in these what are called brain oscillations. So it's for instance, if you look at within one brain region. So let's take the prefrontal cortex because it's
I like
my
that part
favorite
too.
place. One of my favorite places. Don't tell my lab mates. But yeah, so medial prefrontal cortex. There are different neurons there, nerve cells that could fire out of sync, or they could fire in sync. And so a chemical like serotonin, which is the one that I'm studying, this could be released, and actually it doesn't just release one cell to one cell. It could be released actually in a bulk, and then cells within this brain region, in whatever area the serotonin is able to spread out to, will respond to that kind of together.
Call and response. That's a big thing in jazz.
Yeah, it is. It's a call and response.
Very cool. Well, I think normally my first instinctive thought when I hear the word harmony in terms of non-musical terms, I think about people or even within ourselves, we're in sync, we're working together, where everything fits and everything's, I wouldn't say unison, but it's harmonious, right? And it's something we value for humanity. It's something we want. We've been talking a lot about that these days, I think, in news and current events. But in music, it actually, when you talk harmony, it really is a spectrum. It's those two little ears that were so cute. I was so proud to find that. It's a range between consonants, which is, this is pure consonants, same note, to dissonance, which is, right? So it could be a whole range. In fact, yeah, let's flash that we weren't doing subliminal messaging. This is all the possible intervals in Western music. So we have perfect consonants to the octave away, which is on perfect consonants on the left, and then pretty much the same thing, just an octave higher, but everything in between. And then, of course, this is just two notes against each other. You can have 3, 4, 5, 6, how many as you want. So it's very interesting. Music theorists have gone so far as to assign emotions that are evoked by these intervals. And I'll just read a couple here that I have. The open intervals, like perfect fourth, perfect fifth, P4, P5 on the diagram, perfect fourth. They would say this is active. What else? Firmness, achievement. Perfect fifth. Balance. Certainty, mastery. So these are very, to me, confident intervals. And then the smaller ones, especially the minor second, this is probably the most clashiest you could get. I don't know if that's a word, clashiest. They would say dissonant, painful, afflicted, discouraged, fear, anger. And then this very interesting one, A4, smack dab in the middle, which is actually a perfect midpoint between two octaves. They used to call that the devil's interval. It's also called a tritone. They called it excitement, instability. So I think it's really interesting that that music, of course, evokes reactions, and then they look at it scientifically by breaking it down to intervals and then assigning emotions to these intervals. So I'm just curious, like you talked a little bit about serotonin. I've seen that's a brain chemical of some sort, right? And does it have a role to play in I think you did mention feelings, emotions in the prefrontal cortex. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I guess thinking about harmony from the nerve cells perspective. So again, this is the same image that I showed you on the left, sorry, and then on the right there's nerve cells that are kind of almost touching each other, and they're forming what's called a synapse. And so one nerve cell, let's say, I don't know, I don't know what hand this is, but the one hand that I'm shaking right now, it's my right hand, but I don't know what you guys see. This is perhaps releasing an electrical pulse, and this electrical pulse will allow for a chemical to be released. Let's say serotonin, again, my favorite chemical perhaps. And then this other cell can receive that serotonin on what are called receptors, which is, I think of kind of like a mailbox. And so, this cell is releasing its serotonin, this cell is receiving it, and that is one of the ways that the brain is able to communicate. And actually, so the release of serotonin is not like mail, for instance. Like, you just toss it off, and it's usually junk mail. You throw it away. It's actually more precious to the cell, so it can be recycled back in. And this recycling back in is what's called reuptake. And neuroscientists have actually figured out what serotonin is doing by blocking this reuptake. So here I'm showing SSRI, which is selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. And that is perhaps it is Prozac is one of them. And so we now know that serotonin has a role in depression and anxiety because we use these drugs, these SSRIs, blocking this recycling system, and saw what serotonin was doing. So that's how we found out that serotonin has a role in mood and emotion. I actually had a question for you guys. So where do you think emotion is coming from in the body? Where in the body? So type this answer in the, type it in the comments. Helen, do you have any guesses? Well, we kind of are.
I'm sometimes fascinated by the idea is that how do we know what we are feeling? Is it something that people have told us, like when we react a certain way, our parents will say, stop doing that. Like, oh, that's a bad emotion. Like, how do I know that this is anger? Do we all instinctively know it's anger or fear? Like, would we all react the same way if we felt that? Because I know there's a limit to what you can do with human beings in terms of brain research. So can you tell us what kind of, how do you test for these things? Like you're blocking the reuptake and figuring out that it has a role to play with depression and anxiety and stress.
Yeah, so that's a couple of different questions.
Sorry.
So there's how do we know how do we test for it? And then sorry, what was the first question that you were asking?
How do we know what it is that we feel?
Yes, how do we know what it is that we feel? So let me tackle that one first. Okay. So that's actually really interesting. Somebody said the heart. Oh, my brother said the heart. The brain. So yeah, we do take various. So your brain is taking note of what's happening throughout the body. Wow. It also is taking note of what happened previously. It's taking note of previous experiences that you've had. Your parents, for instance, when you were 6, tell you, don't go out into the street. That's a scary place. And then you associate going out into the middle of the street, like in a highway or something, as being a scary place. So it's something that's kind of both. And actually, going back as far as 100 BC, early Stoics, Cicero specifically, talked about emotions as being these evaluative, cognitive content mixed with soul states, which are in tension between the material world and the wind or breath that gives life to the world. So that's kind of very poetic.
Wow.
Oh yeah, the peripheral nervous system. Okay, these are
Wow.
my,
Are these Zuckerman people?
this is this is somebody from my lab.
I love it.
But yeah, so certainly the brain is the nervous system, the peripheral, exactly, different areas as
Oh,
well in the
boy.
body. That are giving rise
Come on,
to
musicians.
emotion.
Where are the musicians?
Where are the musicians?
I'm just teasing.
But yeah, so emotions are both part brain and part body. The brain is constructing our emotions based on previous experiences. So thinking about areas like the hippocampus, which are important for memory, prefrontal cortex, that's my favorite place, and also your external environment, what's happening around you, of course, that's kind of causing or reminding you of something that was scary. And then also the state of your body. So there is a nerve, the vagus nerve is what it's called, that is taking note of what's happening in your gut, what's happening. Are you full from dinner or something like that? Or is your heart rate elevated? And I think maybe, yeah. So it's taking note of a couple of different things that are happening in your body, outside, as well as previous experiences. So the brain is constructing it, but of course the body, the heart, the different areas are also involved.
It sounds like a big party or a big cooperative effort, that has to, again, the term harmony, working in harmony, I can't emphasize that enough. So I thought maybe, why don't we, let me show, yeah, there it is. We're going to do a little game where I'm going to use different intervals and harmonies to try and evoke certain emotions. And again, in music, nothing works in a vacuum, like in the body, right? Nothing is a soul free agent by itself. And harmony is very affected by the melody and the rhythm. But we're going to try and focus on the part of the harmony, like you focus on the medial prefrontal cortex. So, why don't you guys take a listen? I'm gonna have to take off my headphones for each one, but I'll come back right away. So, here's the first one, Exhibit A. Okay, musicians out there, if there are any of you. I'm just teasing. Did that evoke anything?
So somebody is. I don't see any responses yet.
I scared everybody away. They ran. Does anybody recognize that? Oh boy.
Well, I recognize it. Okay, fear. Somebody says fear.
Yeah, why fear? Oh, thank you, Amanda.
Yeah, tension building, sharks.
Yeah.
Yep. Jaws, yes.
Yes. There we go. Yes.
Danger.
Danger. Jaws, yes. So, I know you do some research with mice, and because, well, tell me about that. Like, I remember that's one emotion that I guess is pretty universal and very evident when we feel it or exhibit it. And how do you mice show that in your experiments and stuff?
Yeah. So I do not work with humans, like you mentioned. I work with mice, and so just as you said, fear is a kind of emotion that we are actually able to observe in a mouse as well. One that we feel as well as that we're able to observe. So mice are afraid of things like cats or cat odor, and so there's ways that we can measure their innate fear to these kind of scary things. And so if a mouse is afraid and has actually no place to go, it will freeze, just like a.
Poor thing.
Or if it has a place to go, it will escape, just in kind of the same situations that a human would. And then also we can study kind of anxiety. So perhaps the Jaws movie is a little anxiety provoking for us, having seen it, and perhaps having a irrational fear of sharks or something. Mice are naturally or innately afraid of elevated or open spaces. Those places are anxiety provoking. You kind of think of like a hawk being able to come and grab them. So even though they want to explore, there's a bit of a tension there between the wanting to explore and potentially finding food in the middle of a field versus hugging the corners and staying a little bit more safe. And so we can put a mouse, for instance, in an arena that is open and measure how much time it's spending in the open area versus kind of hugging the walls. Or similarly on a platform where it's kind of here and there's a lot of area around where it's not being kind of hidden in walls. And actually the way that we validate these tests are by using anxiolytic drugs or antidepressant drugs. And the amount of time that they spend in the open area increases when they have these anxiolytic drugs. And actually with the mice that are fearful, with the open areas, we can look at anxiolytic drugs and see how much time they're spending there. Exactly.
Amazing. Okay. Well, let me try this interval on y'all. I'll give you a hint. It's composed of 2 interlocking tritones, the devil's interval. So that should give you a kind of a zip code of what emotions it might evoke. So what does that invoke in our furry friends?
Somebody's saying haunted house.
Good. Very good. Any more? Bad guy tying a lady to the railroad track. Awesome, you read my mind. Oh God, what's that over there?
Yes.
Those are awesome. Yes,
anxiety.
That is the chord. It's a diminished chord. It's what we call it in music theory, and it's the chord
Suspense.
they play in cartoons. Yeah.
Suspenseful.
When someone's tied to the train track and the trains come around the corner, you can hear it. Is the hero gonna get there in time to untie her? All right, y'all are awesome. Yeah. Okay, here's another one.
Ah, my heart.
Thank you. Lots of major chords, which is perfect fifths, major thirds.
Curiosity or wonder.
Nice. I
Yeah.
like that. Happy summer montage. Yay. It's a good day.
Yep.
Amen. Grateful for, yeah, happiness
Frolicking.
and frolicking.
Yeah.
That is actually from Charlie Brown, Happiness. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. It's by Vince Guaraldi.
Bouncy walking. I
See
like
that?
it.
Is that the pre-medial frontal cortex at work?
Well, anticipating the happy feelings actually with the prefrontal cortex.
Amazing. And creating all these imageries and stuff.
Yeah.
It's so cool. It's cool. By Vince Guaraldi, Skating from Charlie Brown. Okay, you want to do one more? Let's do one more. This is another one for your mice.
Serious drama is afoot. Yeah.
Good. That piece is by one of the great pianists, masters of the music, Heroic. Okay. Bud Powell. Star Wars March for Stormtroopers. Okay, I could see that. Perhaps a battle. Ah, that's good. Yeah, well, this piece
Walking.
is...
But you still know how you'll escape in the end.
Nice.
Drama.
Ah. Well, this piece is by Bud Powell. It's called Glass Enclosure, and it is his musical expression of the time he had to spend in a, I don't know what you call it. I don't want to call it an insane asylum. What's the medical term for those? Like a psychiatric facility.
Hospital or yeah.
Hospital. Yeah, he had. So he calls it glass enclosure, and to me, I hear the, just fighting against feeling like he's trapped, but then at the same time, there's hope, there's courage. So do you ever have mice trying to break out? Like, do they know that they can do that, or do any? I'm sure some must accidentally escape out of the odds, right?
I mean, yes, I suppose so. We are their source of food, so when they do escape, they kind of just like hang out there. They're like, okay, you'll rescue me eventually, I think.
Okay.
But yeah, so I guess to me it was a little bit sad, the piece. And one way that we are able to measure sadness or like a depression-like task in mice is by putting them in a beaker of water. And so mice actually float really well. I've never seen a mouse like dip below. But what they'll do, because they don't like being in water, is they'll kick. They'll kick and they'll swim. And this is like an active coping mechanism. But in a mouse that's kind of melancholy or depressed, like behavior, they kind of just hang out, and they just kind of do a passive floating technique. And so, again, this is one of the tasks where we've been able to make some connections to the human. So antidepressant drugs, like the SSRIs that I told you before, are actually able to act or are sensitive to this active versus passive coping mechanism. So giving an antidepressant in a mouse leads to more active coping versus the, come rescue me kind of behavior.
Well, when they give up and float, was that after a good amount of active trying to cope, and then they got tired, or?
No, it's not necessarily just being tired. I think it's an actual coping mechanism for the stress of being in the water. So it's
I see.
we do measure um, how how much effort they will put in, and we're not tiring them out.
I see. And you're able to kind of push them towards one end of the range in terms of passive or active when you do these experiments with the levels of serotonin and stuff like that.
So not exactly measuring like levels of serotonin, but giving more serotonin, or actually not giving more serotonin. It's using this blocking of the recycling program that I talked about. So more serotonin is in that synapse. That is, or that like gap that I talked about before, that is causing there to be more of a active coping in the mice. And it's thought that that is also a mechanism that is a little bit of a black box of exactly what's happening, but this increase of serotonin in the synapse is also somehow alleviating depression and melancholy in humans as well.
Gosh, this reminds me, did you ever read Mrs. Frisbee and the Rats of Nim when you were young?
Oh, I haven't read it, but I've heard of it.
That was the greatest hit when I was in school. I really loved it. I want to hear your opinion on it if you ever read it.
Okay, I'll let you know.
Well, I think, this has been such an amazing conversation, and I learned so much every time. And again, I just want to bring it back to the themes of consonance and dissonance, and just that in music, it's what makes music interesting, what makes music meaningful and tell a story is this interplay between consonance and dissonance. As a composer, I found harmony to be a very effective and powerful tool in expressiveness. Expressing this whole range of emoji faces. It's just 12 here, but it's like it's endless gradations within that spectrum. And some theorists, they say they would describe all of music as starting from consonance or home and taking a journey, finding challenges, going on adventures, and then coming back home. And you need both. If it was just all consonants, it would not be very interesting. And if it was all dissonance, we'd probably be wore out no matter how much serotonin we had left in the synapse. Like I was playing these intervals, like if the whole song was like this the whole time. I just left you like that. You'd be like, hey, like we want that to resolve. Right? But if the song was just this all the time, I'd be like, nothing happened. So I just love that complementary idea with just in the human body, because I remember when we first had our initial conversations about the topic, you said what's the best word to describe what's going on in terms of the inner workings of our brain? It's the word equilibrium. And I just imagine it must be in the most complex and intricate terms imaginable because of just what our brain is. I'm just, I'm so in awe of what you guys do, because to me it's like one of the final frontiers of science. We're dealing with consciousness and intellect. And your favorite part of the brain.
Yeah.
Prefrontal cortex. Any closing thoughts about just that equilibrium and just the universe that's going on inside the brain.
Yeah, so actually, I didn't talk particularly about the task that I'm doing. So I'm studying cognitive flexibility. And so I guess the question is, how do you know what a mouse is thinking about, right? And so cognitive flexibility is this ability to switch between thinking about two different concepts or multiple concepts, which is kind of similar to that definition of harmony, right? The different things that need to be going on at the same time. And so in my task, I'll just describe it kind of briefly, but basically I teach a mouse or odor-based rule in order for them to get a reward. And so there's two pots that they can choose, and they'll eventually learn to go to one of these two, and they're kind of mixed matched based on a rule that's based on odor. And I can change that rule, and then it's based on texture as opposed to odor. And how long they take to learn that new rule is how good they are at this cognitive flexibility, this ability to kind of think flexibly, because they have to keep the old rule in their minds and also learn that that old rule is no longer the correct rule. And so there's a bit of tension there, actually. And I could see in my mice that they're kind of like, is it this one? Is it this one? They kind of go back and forth between the two. And,
wait, what's the prize, though? What's the prize?
Oh, yes, the prize is just a piece of Cheerio, which they love.
Honey Nut Cheerios or plain?
Honey Nut Cheerios. No, you can't give them. You cannot give them plain Cheerios. They will refuse to do the task.
Wow, interesting.
But yeah, so they kind of are thinking about it. They kind of hemming, hawing, and there's tension building and anticipation in my prefrontal cortex as I'm like, what will they get it right? And so I'm using a fancy technique that allows me to release serotonin specifically in the medial prefrontal cortex, in a sub-region of the medial prefrontal cortex. Again, medial prefrontal cortex is shown here in the human, but of course I'm working in mouse. But when I release that serotonin, it seems like they're actually doing better in this task. They're taking less trials before they get to what I consider the criteria. So they don't know when they're done, but I know when I'm keeping track. And they're also making less mistakes. And so this is something that I'm still actively working on. But it seems like they're kind of using this strategy to quickly learn, not quite abandon, but they're more flexible. They're able to kind of potentially get the wrong answer. Like they're more likely to kind of make this could be wrong mistake once they get one wrong. And that because the rule is changed, that it's leading to right answers sometimes. So I guess within the medial prefrontal cortex, there seems to be a need for a balance of serotonin, but certainly, like I've talked throughout the discussion, there's balance throughout the brain, right? We're not using just the medial prefrontal cortex, even as though it's probably my favorite. We are not just the medial prefrontal cortex. We are other brain regions as well. And so that goes back to the music in the brain slide that we showed. We are using all of our brain for music, but we're also using it throughout our whole lives, and in everything that we're doing. And so my research has implications for people who have cognitive impairments. So you can think of major depressive disorder, you can think of schizophrenia, but also it provides some insights into the greater understanding of how we function normally. Just in our day-to-day life. So how we're able to go about and listen to music and enjoy it, and kind of this anticipation of what's happening next. So yeah, at least in the case of medial prefrontal cortex, but
because it's your favorite. Yay. Well, I suspect even within that, knowing that more of it would help mice excel more in their tasks, there still is a balance. Like you can't always have more of it, right? Because it's again not acting on its own. It's in combination with other things, and so there's this this dance, this equilibrium, shall we say?
Yes, exactly.
Within the brain, within the body, with the body,
within all of us.
Yes, and amongst all of us, harmony. Yes, yes. So with that theme ringing in our minds, I want to close out with some music, and this is a teaser because my laptop is. I'm a fan of using laptops and general electronic equipment till they die, and I think my laptop has started that journey. So I was unable to finish a video that we will share at a future date with our science director, who has been behind the scenes working the slides and just helping us form the series. We're so grateful to her. We want to say hello and thank you to Dr. Paula Croxon of the Zuckerman Institute.
Hi, Paula.
And she's also a very accomplished musician and storyteller and flautist, which you will see at a future date. But I'm going to play today, I'll be the stand-in, of Summertime with the 3 different harmonic clothings. So I just want you to sit back and listen and enjoy and just think about maybe what different emotions you might be feeling, as I'm going to play 3 times in a row. And then afterwards, we'll take some comments, questions. It's been such a joy to spend time with Ashlea Morgan and Ryan and Paula, the folks at the Zuckerman and also the Jazz Museum. We're so grateful. And so here we go. Yeah,
Lovely.
that was really fun. Thank you so much, Ashlea. It is such an honor to meet you, and I know you're involved with some really amazing events and things that are going on right now. You want to tell us about something special going on this month, I think?
Yeah, so this week is actually Black and Neuro Week. So that's the awesome graphic that was made for Black and Neuro. I'm actually not one of the organizers, but I have been participating, and I'm super excited about it. There's awesome lectures that are going on, panel discussions. There's a podcast. There's really awesome. I think there's yoga one day on Sunday. But yeah, so it's there. You can follow any of the, on Twitter, Black and Neuro, follow the hashtags Black and Neuro Week, or Black Neuro Roll Call, which is where everyone Black and Neuro has been introducing ourselves. That was yesterday. And I made a video and introduced myself. Honestly, one of the hardest things I've done this week. And then, of course, if you're interested in me, if you want to learn more about me, my tags are also there. Ashlea A Morgan 1 on Twitter and Dat One Girl on Instagram.
Thank you so much, and I hope to cross paths with you in person. I want to go back to Dear Mama and get one of those dried cherry chocolate cookies. Yeah. My whole brain likes that cookie a lot.
100%.
And we just want to thank Ryan. Let's welcome Ryan back to the stage for just this wonderful opportunity to share some music and science.
Yeah, it was amazing, you guys. Every session, I learn more and more, and we get more of an insight into this amazing intersection between music and the brain. And every time there are these realizations about these parallels that are really, coming from the musical end of things, it really helps to just get an understanding of why we feel the way we do and why music is such an important part of being alive. One of the things that, we eat every day, we sleep every day, and we listen to music every day. And there's a reason for that. And every session we learn a little bit more about why the brain, cherishes music so much. It was really great. And we're getting lots of great comments from everybody on Facebook. So thank you guys all very much for tuning in. Let me see if there's any good questions. We've been getting a few questions. There was one that actually I was very interested in to hear your thoughts on this, Ashlea.
It's true. Too much serotonin is not necessarily a good thing either. And similar to too little, there's a syndrome. So I'm not a doctor, but there's a syndrome called Serotonin Syndrome, which arises when you have too much serotonin, and that involves, I think, muscle spasms and other not great things. Too much is not great either.
Cool. Wonderful. Well, if you have additional questions, we'll be following the comments over the next several days. So if you do have other comments, we'll circle back and try to get those answered for you. But I want to give a big thank you out to our friends over at the Zuckerman, of course, Dr. Paula Croxton, Alyssa Mayer, who's also behind the scenes making it happen, and Ashlea, for sure. Thank you so much for joining us, and good luck on your path towards PhD-ness.
Yeah, woo.
I know is long, but we're excited to have you part of the Jazz Museum family. And Helen, you've been great at all of these, looking for these intersections and working with all these amazing, brilliant scientists and looking for those connections. It's been really amazing. So on behalf of everyone here at the museum and our friends over at the Zuckerman, thank you guys all for tuning in. It's been a great day here for us. And this will be available online if you missed or you didn't get a chance to hear everything. It will be archived on our Facebook page for a little while, so you can check it out. But please check out all the Black and Neuro events that are taking place. I was looking at the schedule, and I have several of them marked on my calendar. There's lots of really cool things happening. So thank you guys very much. Looking ahead into August, stay tuned for our Afro-Latin Roots celebration that happens throughout the month of August. Those events will be on our website, jmih.org. And with that, everyone, thank you very much. Have a great day. Paula, Ashlea, Helen, everybody, it's been great. Thank you all very much.
Thanks, Ryan. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you.